Would you make some noise for your King today? Come on, celebrate him. Come on, celebrate him. So excited to have you here with us today. Real quick, as you guys know, next week is Christmas Eve. Y'all pumped for Christmas Eve? Really excited about it. We're going to do one service right here at 9:30. We're going to fill the place. We're excited about it. But listen, we have all kinds of shareables. You can get them online for text messaging, everything else. But we want you to invite people. I want to kind of challenge you here. I invite everybody I know I can to Christmas Eve. And I'll tell you this, in our church, the amount of leaders and the amount of even staff that have come on a Christmas Eve or that initially came to our church on a Christmas Eve is staggering. It's more than Easter. And so I would say that people that come on Christmas Eve, a lot of times are even looking for churches. And so I want to implore you and I want to challenge you. Invite everybody you know, but I want you to commit to one person, bringing one person that you know needs to be here. One. Right? We can get overwhelming and say, hey, invite 10 friends, bring 15, right? I'm saying, I want you to pray, and I want you to invite that one person that you have that relationship with, that you know God has been stirring you, that he has been challenging you, saying, hey, get to church. I'm doing something special in you. Invite that person. Bring them with you, and watch God do what only he will do. The thing I love about Christmas and Easter is that the whole world is telling the story of Jesus right now. Everything is telling his story. Whether or not they call it Christmas or holidays, it's telling the story of Jesus. And so really God has put the ball on the tee, and we just need to kick it, right? That's all we got to do is fulfill what he's asking us to do. And so I just want to challenge you with that. Really, really excited. We got a couple more weeks until it's 2024. Y'all ready for the new year? I've seen so many funny memes about, I hope that God decides to give me favor and blessing instead of trials and tribulations in 2024. Well, listen, one don't come without the other, and one usually brings the other. You get favor and blessing, guess what? It brings trials and tribulations with it, right? But I'm excited about what God is doing. We're continuing our study in Exodus, but I love Christmas. I love Christmas music. I love Christmas movies. I will admit, I listen to Christmas music in my car, but there are certain songs that come on that I turn because I'm thinking, I feel a little weird listening to this by myself. It's just a weird Christmas song. Like Josh Groban comes on, you know, oh, I'm like, I gotta go, bro. My wife is in here, I feel romantic. I feel like, but when it's just me, I feel like, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. I got to turn it. I think Josh Groban is a phenom. I think he's a freak of nature. I think he's incredibly gifted. And when I'm with my wife, I like listening to him. By myself, no, I got to find Mariah. I know she's around here somewhere. Yeah, I can sing Mariah, a little Bieber every now and then, you know, whatever it may be. But I love Christmas movies. Any Christmas movie fans? Any Christmas movie haters? Oh, okay. How many of y'all are Hallmark Christmas movie fans? See, those are awful. I'm just going to say it, they're awful. I tried last night for 3 minutes to watch one, and I couldn't even get through it. I was thinking we could film this on our stage at our church, and it'd be better than this, with random people from the crowd. Do I believe that? Yes, I absolutely believe that. I really do. I know no shot to Hallmark. They're doing something right. They are doing something right. And all you actors and actresses with Hallmark, keep going. Keep going. You're doing a great job. And so maybe that was an unfair slam. But I love Christmas movies. You know, one of my favorites, and those of you who are on the podcast, you might have heard my list. But my list is bigger than that, okay? I'm more than just a podcast, all right? A lot of people come to me, hey, man, listen to your podcast. I'm like, do you know I pastor a church? Listen to your podcast. I'm more than my podcast, okay? One of my favorite movies is Home Alone 2. I like 1 and 2. Any Home Alone fans? All right, good. We've got off to a good start here. Home Alone 2, one of my favorite parts is when they're in Kevin's uncle's house, and they're coming down the rope to get Kevin. He's already jumped down. He's getting ready to go into the park, and they're like, what's that smell? He's like, the rope. It's soaked in gas, you know, or kerosene. It's soaked, you know, and they start going down. It smells, and he's like, go back. Go back. Kevin, like, lights the match. Go back. And, okay. And he starts going back. How many people in here, other than Matt, are terrified of heights? I know Matt is terrified of heights. We could be on the second floor of a building, and I nudge him towards the window, and he's like, oh! Got you, Matt. Got you, baby. But I love that. I love that moment. They're climbing. Go back. And I love the response. Okay. Like, this is where we're headed. I don't want to go down that rope. Go back. Okay, go back. And I wonder how many of us, that is a beautiful picture of our life with Jesus right now. You start going down that rope, you're like, I believed, I prayed for favor and blessing. This feels a little bit like a trial and a tribulation. And you're waiting for God to say, go back. Oh, good. And your idea of going back is going to safety where you're not having to worry about the rope that's soaked in something that's going to light on fire. God's idea of go back is walking into fire. You see, you don't realize that your safety lies in the places that are the hottest. So when God says, go back, he's usually saying we walked so fast that we missed it, or we intentionally missed something that is actually intended to help us. You think like the Old Testament with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they got thrown in the fiery furnace, and they looked in the furnace, and it wasn't 3, there was 4, and it was Jesus. That's like every kid's, story, and in Sunday school you learned it, and you had a little flannel graph, and you're like, oh, look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Jesus doing their thing. They were in a furnace so hot that even the guards died putting them in. And so I wonder how many of us, we say, go back. Go back. And God's like, okay, go back. And I go, thank God. Thank God. I thought we were going to have to go through something. And what God is saying is that I think in our life, we walk a little fast past the areas that are the hottest. And when God says go back, what he's saying first is go back to me. Not that you were far away, but go back to me. And then let's go back there together. And it's interesting because where we're at in the book of Exodus, Moses has received his calling. He has argued with God and re-received his calling, and argued with God and re-received his calling. And he goes to Pharaoh and he tells him, finally we have arrived. How many of you have ever wanted to put a business together and you finally got the business cards ordered, the logo made, you had your outfit picked out for all your photo shoots, and you went live with the website, and you knew the minute that you pushed publish, world was about to know. Things are about to get crazy. And nothing happened. You're thinking, I have prepped and planned and went to school and got my master's, and I have worked in this field for 20 years and nothing's happening? No. Why? Because you're going to have to build your business. Building isn't fun. Receiving is a lot of fun. Building stuff is usually not that exciting because it takes time and work that nobody will ever see. And so what happened with Moses is that for 40 years, he was building his brand out in the middle of the desert with just him and God. He finally receives his call, and by the time he was ready to hit publish on his website, he goes to Pharaoh, and when he gets in front of Pharaoh, he says, let my people go, and Pharaoh says, no, I don't even know who you are. Fast, depression, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, fear. And to make it worse, all the Israelites that believed in Moses and Aaron, you're our saviors, you're going to be the ones that God uses. Now they turned on him and said, we don't even want to hear what you have to say. Because of you, we're now having to make the same amount of bricks. The quota is not changed, but without straw. So because of you, we are now in a position that life is harder because you've heard from God. But let me pause and say this. In your life, when you are Jesus to people, when you are in authority in their life, when you are the voice of God to them, when they come to you, when they need that prayer time or that moment, you will always be given credit for their failures until they find healing. You're the reason that our work has become harder. No, I'm trying to bring you freedom, but there's a cost. Talking about hundreds of years of slavery. There's a cost. And so Moses goes back to God when Pharaoh said no and the people said no. In Exodus chapter 6, it says, so the Lord told Moses, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. When he feels the force of my strong hand, he will let the people go. In fact, he will force them to leave his land. And God said to Moses, I am Yahweh, the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai, God Almighty. But I did not reveal my name, Yahweh, to them. And I reaffirmed my covenant with them. Under its terms, I promised to give them the land of Canaan where they were living as foreigners. You can be sure that I have heard the groans of the people of Israel who are now slaves to the Egyptians, and I am well aware of my covenant with them. What he's trying to say is, Moses, you have done what I've asked you to do. You have been turned away by the Hebrews, you have been turned away by their leaders, and you have been turned away by the Pharaoh. You were on an island by yourself. Only you heard it. Only you know it. They are denying it. And even Pharaoh is saying there's no way. Now you are positioned with what I like to call checkmate. And now I can do what only I can do. Now you can't get the credit for it. Now you will see. And what you need to realize in your position and in your life and in your calling and in where you are, listen to this. God is aware of where you're at, and he is close. Because that's the part we tend to forget. Exodus chapter 3, let's go back a couple of weeks. Verse 7, it says, the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt, and I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. I am, what's that word? What is it? What is it? Aware. I know what's going on. The lack of movement isn't representative of my lack of movement. I know what's going on. I love in Ephesians chapter 2 when Paul tells the church in Ephesus, he says, but now you have been united with Christ. Once you were far away from God, but now you've been brought near to him through the blood of Christ. He's saying you're right there. And you got to realize the reason that life is so hard for you is because God is doing something new through you. And when it's something new, it can't be stepped on like everything before you. God is using your life to do something new. He's using your calling. You're saying, well, people haven't really done this. It's because he's doing something new through you. Why? Because it's you. And there's only one you. And so no matter how many people have been a principal of a school before, you're the only one who's done it as you. No matter how many people have been a doctor before, you're the only one who has done it as you. No matter how many people have been a professional athlete before, you're the only one who has done it as you. No matter how many people have been an engineer before, you're the only one who has done it as you. God is doing something new through your life. And it's different. And it's interesting because what God tells Moses is, I'm appearing to you under a new name. For them, I was God Almighty. Why? Because that's what they needed me to be. But for you, Moses, I'm Yahweh, which means the promise keeper, because that's what you need me to be. God wanted to reveal more than himself. He wanted to reveal more of himself to Moses in this way. He wanted to show him, I'm going to keep promises that I even told Abram. I'm going to keep promises that you've been reading about. But in your life and in your situation and in your desires and the things that seem like they're at a tension right now, God knows what you need him to be. He knows what you need. He knows how he needs to fill in those gaps. Say it with me. Say, God knows what I need him to be. I love in Matthew chapter 6. It says, when you pray, don't babble on as the Gentiles do. They think their prayers are answered by merely repeating their words again and again. He says, don't be like them, for your Father knows exactly what you need even before you ask him. How many of us run into the presence of God and just... How many of you have a friend who talks and never listens, but they're still your friend, but they don't listen? You have friends like that? I hope they're not sitting beside you, whoever just said that. If they are, you're a real good friend, or they just don't care. And you're saying, would you just listen to me for a minute? See, God takes the weight off of having to explore and explode everything that you are. He wants to know, but he's saying, you don't have to babble. You don't have to think of kind words to get in here. Just talk to me. There's nobody in your life, including your spouse, that you never have a hint of nervousness to talk to about a particular subject. But God, there's nothing. There's no tension. How many of you, I'm going to ask a question that sounds rhetorical, but I promise you it's applicable. How many of you would love to live in your life in complete freedom from the things that seem to bind you? 4 of us, okay. I'm going to have to, let's scratch this and go back to another message about redemption. No, you were one. Isaiah, me and you, we got each other. I don't know, my wife didn't even raise her hands. I don't know. How many of y'all, you guys aren't a team. You can't raise your hand for one of you, for 2 of you. Okay, we got 2. How many of y'all would say, more than anything, I want to walk in freedom in my life? Now, how many of you would lift your hand and give him a shout? How many of you want to walk in freedom in your life? Okay, we're getting somewhere. Why? Because freedom has a way to suppress our emotions, right? But this is the thing about freedom, because we all want it, and I hope that you heard that shout, because I hope you would realize that there's a lot of people in here that are in the same place you are. We're all in love with Jesus. Some of us are going to find him today. Some of us are in that process, but we're closer than where we were, and we're on a journey, and that's okay. But the thing about freedom that's interesting that you got to realize today is that freedom increases your burden before it eases it. When you're walking through freedom, there's things you got to do, steps you got to take. There's roads you're going to have to walk, and there's conversations you're going to have, and there's spiritual things you're going to have to grow through as you're becoming free. For some of you, it'll be days, others weeks, others months, some years. There is a burden that will increase in your life. Think about this country and how great of a country we have. How many military are in this church and how many military serve? How many military families? This is a military community in Virginia Beach. More than 35% of our community is military. 60% of our church, if not more, is current or former military. What's the purpose of the military? To protect the United States of America, to uphold the Constitution, to stand firm in front of other countries if they try to invade, and to be an aid to countries that need help. The United States of America and our government exists to protect the people of the Constitution. The United States of America military exists to protect us against foreign and domestic harm. Right? And so if that's what it takes for us to find freedom in whatever you want to define that as a country, what do you think it's going to take for you to have spiritual freedom? There's a fight. There's a war at hand. And freedom is a burden that you will have to bear until you start to live in it. It's the same thing. Ask the people that went over to Vietnam or to World War I or to World War II or the people that fought in the Desert Storm or the people who came back from Afghanistan. Ask them what it feels like to come back when everybody is living in a freedom that they're fighting for and we don't see the oppression that they're actually in while they're fighting for us. I can do what I do from here because of men and women that have sacrificed their life every day for us. Yeah. I would hope in this community we can celebrate that. More than a lot of places. It's personal in a deeper way because you've made great sacrifices. My point is that freedom has a burden associated with it. And we think, well, God, I thought you were going to take this away. He's like, I'm processing it. But if I took it, it can only come if you give it. And those are a relational thing that's going to require you to do so that I can lift the burden. Moses kind of understood this. The interesting part is God's looking forward to the showdown. God wants this in your life. Because he said, Moses, you did what I told you to do. You went to Pharaoh. He turned his back on you. The people have turned their back on you. The Israelite, the Hebrews, the elders, everybody has turned their back on you. And he says, now you'll see what I can do. You're in checkmate. Nobody's got your back. Just me. Exodus chapter 6, it says, therefore, say to the people of Israel, I am the Lord. I will free you from your oppression and will rescue you from your slavery in Egypt. I will redeem you with a powerful arm and great acts of judgment. I will claim you as my people and I will be your God. Then you will know that I'm the Lord your God who has freed you from your oppression in Egypt. I will bring you into the land I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as your very own possession. I am the Lord. And as we read this scripture, I think we have a couple of variants that are listening. One, I think people can very easily get bored with this concept because you've heard of freedom, you've heard of God redeeming, you've heard of restoration, and yet you have a failure in your life to experience that, and you're irritated because you hear about a concept that you can't relate directly to. I think there are some people who have lived and walked in freedom and different levels of freedom, but you know there is still a place in a particular relationship or in a particular mental state or maybe in a particular physical space that you know God still wants to deliver you from some things. And then I think there's some of you have been on both sides of this and you understand the frustration and you understand what it's like to be completely free. But something that's interesting is whenever the scripture is talking about God saying, I need you to know me because I know you, what scripture is trying to teach us is that this word know is a little bit more intimate than what we want to assume. The word know is based on experience and relationship. It's the same word used to describe sexual relations. And what he is saying is to know God as Yahweh, it's a fact and it's abstract. But being in a relationship with God is to know who he is and what he wants us to do. In Genesis chapter 4, it says, now Adam and Eve had sexual relations. In the New King James Version, it says Adam knew his wife. And she became pregnant. She gave birth to Cain and said, with the Lord's help, I have produced a man. The revelation in your life about how God wants to walk you through freedom, about how he wants you to go to Pharaoh, about how he wants you to talk to the elders, about how he wants you to go back to do the very things that you didn't want to go to begin with. And now he's saying, go back to Pharaoh, go back to the Israelites. Now I need you to go back to me. All these things, going back. This concept really revolves on this. Revelation is lacking when knowledge is lacking. And so the reason you don't have revelation from God is because you don't intimately know God. It's a direct correlation. So what it's trying to say is knowledge of God brings revelation. So we're saying, well, God, I need you to reveal things to me. Moses is sitting here and he is saying, God, I'm not doing this again. But Moses had an intimacy with God. It's talking about an intimacy between a husband and a wife, a knowing of God, a spiritual connection as deep as that, saying, I feel you the way that you feel me. I understand when you have a mood. Fellas, y'all know how it is. You've seen the memes when wife is on a warpath and you're downstairs watching TV and you hear it coming down the steps and you start grabbing everything and you put the blankets away, you start cleaning the dishes, you try to do everything you can to be like, I've been working the whole time, right? Ladies, you know how it is whenever your husband comes home from a long day and you're thinking, man, he's in a mood. I'm going to make sure that I just try to ease this around here as much as I can because I don't want him to get ticked off, right? Husbands and wives, you do for each other to try to ease the burden of your day. It's what you do. You know them. So my wife can say something to you that you hear what she says and you receive it the way she said it. My wife says something to me and I know what she says, whether or not the words that came out of her mouth. I understand because I know her, not just physically, but I know her spiritually and I know her emotionally. And so when she says, that's fine, you may think she really doesn't care. And there are times in her life where I will tell you she doesn't care. She legitimately could care less. My wife, the less decision that she has to make most of the time, the better. She doesn't care. She kind of roll with the punches. But when we have a conversation and I offer an explanation or an option, and I know there was tension in that conversation, and she says, that's fine. What I know is sometimes she just wants me to stop talking. She's just saying, that's fine, just stop talking. And if I continue talking, it's going to go from that's fine to an argument. Why? Because I haven't read the room very well. A lot of you don't struggle because of what you say. You struggle because of when you say it, right? RTR. We have acronyms in our house for everything, right? Like WTB. Tell my boys, wash that booty all the time. Say, boys, go take a shower. WTB, wash that booty. Why? Because y'all nasty. You're nasty boys. You need to take showers, and once a week doesn't count it. WTB, boys, wash that booty. So my wife, I'll be like, RTR, baby, RTR. She'll be like, that was really good. I was like, RTR. She's like, yep, read the room. Read the room. You got to read the room. Why? Acronyms, they work. You say them, you know what's going on. My point to this is a lot of you don't struggle with what to say. You just don't read the room very well because the knowledge has not brought the revelation. And so you're speaking in human wisdom and not in God's revelation. You ever been in a position, and at the end of the day, it could be something, it could have been related to an addiction, it could have been related to a movie choice, it could be related to an affair. You like how we just went like this? It could be related to where you're eating at, it could be related to your spouse, it could be related to a friend, it could be related to somebody that you just met. You ever have a situation in your life, and you think at the end of that conversation or that time or that addiction or whatever it may be, you think, how did I get here? What happened that this is the byproduct of all of these things in my life? Has anybody ever been in a position like that? It's because knowledge has not brought the revelation. Because God threw caution flags up for you. He threw those things up and you just ran through them. Why? Because there was no revelation. You failed to read the room very well. You didn't know him intimately the way you think you did. Some of you are in a place where you're on edge right now, waiting for somebody to screw up so you can blame God for something. Waiting for your church to screw up. Waiting for your pastor to say something. Waiting for somebody to tick you off on social media. Waiting for your spouse to say that one dumb thing they always say after a Sunday. You're waiting for somebody to do something, and you're ready to pounce. And you think that's because the world is jacked. No, it's because you're jacked. And it's okay. But knowledge of who God is will bring revelation. And what revelation does, it changes perception and your reality and the way you see everything. And what Moses was going through is that Moses is talking to Pharaoh and Moses is talking to the elders. And all he can see is people that have rejected the calling of God on his life, and God is not done in Moses' life what he said he was going to do. But what Moses doesn't see until he gets this knowledge is that this was a part of the process for God to fulfill in Moses' life what God said Moses was going to do. And so Exodus chapter 6, verse 9 says, so Moses told the people of Israel what the Lord had said, and they refused to listen anymore. They had become so discouraged by the brutality of their slavery. And the Lord said to Moses, go back to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and tell him to let the people of Israel leave his country. This may be the hardest commandment you'll ever read about in the entirety of Scripture. Have you ever been fed up in your life to the point where you don't know what to do next? And maybe, let's talk about the situations that you caused. Is anybody in here willing to admit to all of us and to God that you have caused situations in your life and you get so fed up, you're like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore? Okay, and those who have not raised your hands, you have yet to accept the blame. You're at fault. Just trust me. We all had it. We've all had it. My point is this. We've all been there. And the last thing we want to do, even after you make amends with somebody, unless it was a legitimate, deep, revelatory, intimate friendship that was redone, you just don't want to see them for a while. Saying, we're good, we apologize, but I just need my space. That's a clear sign of not being healed. I don't want to be around that person. Yeah, because you don't like them. Because you're mad, you're angry, you're bitter. Get over it. Get some knowledge, let God bring the revelation and forgive them. Right? When you walk in a room with somebody and you can't even look at them right because you just despise them, that's not good. It's not a good thing. And so what happened with Moses is that he said, God, you called me to this. And then he goes to Pharaoh. He goes, and the Hebrews are saying, we hate you. We don't want you to be around us. We don't want nothing to do with you. You're a disaster. And Pharaoh says, I don't even know you're God. And then God tells Moses, I am still God. I'm still Yahweh. I'm still everything and more that you know me to be. I need you to go back. Come on, man. Have you ever had a surgery in your life that required staples, and then after you got it stapled, they said, I'm going back in? You're thinking, what? No, you're not. So yeah, because we didn't get all the infection out, and if I don't go back in, this will kill you. That's what God's trying to tell you to do. He's saying there has been a surgery in your life. There have been things, and these are two scenarios. There have been things that you have left, and I'm telling you, go back, because there is a partial gangrene setting in that if you don't get fixed now, it is going to take your life later. And he's trying to stir this in us. The second part is some of you started your calling and you didn't finish. You're really excited about what God's going to do, and you started your schooling and you quit. You're really excited about what God's going to do, and you started reading the room and trying to read your Bible and trying to lock in, but then you quit. You're really excited. You started going to church, and then you just stopped going to church. You're really excited. You wanted to join the dream teams, but you're just too busy. You see what I'm saying? God's saying, go back. You can't skip the steps. How many shoe heads do I have in here? You love shoes. You just like to buy shoes. All right? And you're saying, I'm willing to do whatever I can to buy good shoes. How effective would your shoe buying be if you walked into the shoe store, Foot Locker, God rest your soul. I heard about the news. I'm sorry to hear it. You go into Foot Locker and you say, I want those. I know they're the Jordan ones. I want those. And you say, I don't care what size they're on. Just give me them. And you walk out of the store. How many of you are going to be happy with your purchase? They say, we got 7 colors. And they range in price from $100 to $2,000. Which one? I don't care. Just give me one size. So you walk out with a $2,000 pair of shoes, size 7.5. Hey, what do I do with these? I'm a grown man. That's what we do with God. We say, I'm starting the process. I've gotten to the store. I'm walking in. But now just give me whatever you need so I can get out of here. And we need to go back to the places that we've been hurt. We need to go back to the places that we've been stirred. Some of you aren't dealing with loss this holiday season because it was somebody that mattered to you. That is a part of it. You're dealing with loss so heavy this holiday season because you've dealt with a lot of things that have mattered to you and you've let them go for years. It's not the death of the one person. It's the death of the multiple people. It's the way you were treated as a child. It's the trauma you never dealt with. It's the way you and your spouse have secrets you've never really talked about. It's just understood we both were unfaithful. These cumulative issues in your life aren't from one issue. They're because we have left so much infection inside of us. That's why God kept sending Moses back. He's saying, do you trust me? If Moses hadn't had the moments we've been on the last 3 or 4 weeks, talking about his calling and the way he talked to God and the way God worked him through all of this disgust and darkness in his own heart towards God and the Egyptians, and Moses hadn't worked through that, Moses wasn't going to go back again to Pharaoh. God said, go back. I'll tell you one of the most dangerous things that we can do. A lot of times when God takes us through something in our life and we think, well, I'm healed, I never have to worry about that again, that is a huge red flag for me. Because anytime you struggle with something in your life, can God bring freedom? Yes, but that doesn't mean he brings ignorance. Knowing tricks of darkness are as important as not getting involved in tricks of darkness. If you're an alcoholic, stop going to dinner with people, everybody drinks except for you. If that's a temptation. If you struggle with alcoholism, find a different route on the way home from work than by the places that you would always buy your alcohol. There are things we have to do in our life if we want behaviors to change. And what God was telling Moses is that you'll go back to Pharaoh the way I'm asking because of what I've already done in your heart. And a lot of us want to just jump into what God has, but this is the problem. If you do that, you will not have the DNA and the resiliency to go back to the place that causes the tension unless you've already been healed from the other stuff. This makes sense. He's saying, Moses, go back. He's like, everybody hates me. Why would I go back? This makes no sense. Moses is saying, you want me to go back to the place of the already induced trauma? Back to that court? You want me to go back to where I'm reminded of my speech impediment? The place where I see my weakness? You want me to go back to the place where I was told by the Israelite leaders to leave them alone? You want me to go back to the place of insecurity and a reminder that I wasn't capable? You want me to go back and try this again? I've already done this one. It didn't work. I'd be stupid to continue. But freedom's going to increase your burden before it eases it. Knowledge will bring revelation. But our responsibility in all of this is to position yourself for the showdown. That's your responsibility. I think a lot of us get really frustrated at God for not doing in our life what we thought he said he was going to do, what we'd hoped he would do. And it's not that he's not willing to do it, it's that we're not positioned. You're on the bench in the World Series and you're mad at God because you're not getting a hit. You haven't even gotten the bat. You haven't stepped up to put your helmet on. You haven't put on your arm sleeve, your batting gloves, your elbow protector, your knee guard, your leg guard. Put in your mouthpiece, chewed some sunflower seeds, put your eye black on, your glasses on, so you can't even step up to the plate. God's saying, you're not even in the box, bro. How am I supposed to get you a hit? You've been sitting on this bench yelling the whole time, but you have yet to stand up and walk out of the dugout where the field of play is happening and that baseball is flying at 100 miles an hour. You are too scared to step on the grass. What does that mean? For some of you, you just lie. You just lie to yourself. And you don't accept the reality of your life. For some of you, you're not willing to accept the healing that God has for your life. You don't feel like you're good enough and you don't deserve it. None of us do. That's why his grace is sufficient, because Jesus is good enough. Go back. Go back. I had a million different titles for this message. But the title of this message is simply, go back. For some of you, this will mean I need to go back to my place of pain and finish the process. For others, this will mean I need to go back and pick up where I left off. What if Moses had said, God, I did what you asked me to do. I've done everything that you wanted. Why go back? Because if you haven't gone back to this point, it's not that you don't want healing or freedom or some kind of transparent life. It's because you don't think you're a good enough reason to go back. Your thought is, I can live the rest of my life in this place that's really a redefined hellhole for me. Why go back? You know why God told Moses to go back? And it's the same reason I would encourage you to go back. He said, Moses, the people are discouraged. They need you. Mom and dad, the kids are discouraged. Husband, the wife is discouraged. Wife, the husband's discouraged. friend, your buddies are discouraged, family, your aunts and uncles are discouraged. He's saying, Moses, go back because the people are discouraged. He wasn't talking about Moses' pain. He wasn't talking about all the things that Moses had to go through. Moses was brokenhearted, disheartened. Someone has to care enough to save their lives, to pay the price, to put others first. We buy gifts and we post on social media the things we do for others, and we want to be a part of helping people with our excess. But I want to know, why don't we use our necessities to help people and celebrate that? The food that you actually have for your family and you don't have the excess, why don't we give those things away? Now, I'm not telling you have to. What I'm saying is we have a tendency in our culture to celebrate excess that we give, but we don't celebrate the necessities that we give because generally we're too scared and it's too sacrificial to promote. And my question is, when you go back, you don't see what you're giving out of. You just know that God's told you to give. You don't know if it's food for your family or if it's food that's been in the pantry or if it's you guys know when you go to the canned goods, y'all don't go to Walmart and buy the best stuff. You guys find the cans in the very back of your pantry that have been outdated or that you know are probably still good and have no name brand. And those are the ones you put in the bag and you take to the canned goods. Got quiet. Y'all know. You don't go and buy the most expensive stuff. Maybe you do. My point is this. We have a tendency to give out of what's left over and not out of what we use to provide for our lives. That's the purpose of giving. When God says, give to me your 10%. And you guys have given the incredible gift of a church to Oakland, Maryland this Christmas. Come on, celebrate that. You gave an entire city a church. Say, why don't we do these different outreaches and why don't we do these different things at Christmas? This Christmas, you want to know why? Because y'all just gave more than $60,000 in a time of financial recession in this country to a church that you will most likely never walk into 6 hours from here that is already being prepared for what's going to happen on March 31st when we launch Palms Church in Oakland, Maryland. You gave this community a gift of a church where young families and addicts are going to flock to. And we already have people up there the day of with all these different events we're going to do. It's incredible how this thing is forming. We have people in these areas already watching Palms Church in their living rooms and gathering in anticipation of us coming. I've already gotten emails and texts and Facebook messages, people who've told me, I came to Palms Church during COVID and I went to a physical church, but God kept stirring me to get back to Palms. So I was going to start gathering people in my living room to watch this church in Oakland, Maryland, right before I heard you were launching. God is before us, and he is using what he is doing here to reach people there, and he's doing it far above and beyond anything you can think, ask, or imagine. Your money was not given in vain. We're going back. We're going back. The stories that I'm hearing, people that are gathering, people that want to be a part, we're like, we got a bunch of carpenters. What do you need to do? I said, tell them to hang on. We're coming. We're going back. Why? Because for us, I know that we're 9 years old, and I thank God for the way he has sustained our church, but we're going back. We're always going to continue to launch campuses and always reach people in places that we may never see. Why? Because we don't want to give just out of our excess. We want to give out of our necessities. You know what that kind of money could have done for our church? I have had a lot of people say, well, Brandon, what about our building? I'm just curious, not because they were mad, but I have never heard this question so much in our church. And I said, God was very clear that he will be the provider. We have to stay missional and provide where he's asking us to. And when you as a church are willing to give to a place that isn't covering your head, but the heads of others, God will provide you with something that's going to blow our minds, Palms Church. He's going to blow everything, all your expectations of what he's going to give us as a building one day. But let me tell you this, we have proved it, and I stand here today on a passionate plea. The building has never been this church. We've been at Great Neck Middle. We've been at Cox High School. We've been at the Strawbridge. We were online for a year. We've been at Open Door Chapel. Now we're here at Green Run High School. And this church has grown. It has flourished. People have found the vision. They have gotten saved. People have gotten baptized. We've launched campuses. We've launched online campuses. Why? Because God is saying, I need you to stay faithful to the call. Give out of your necessities, not out of your excess. And I'm telling you, you will continue to go back to the places in your life. And you'll continue to go back to the places as a church. And you'll continue to launch churches and watch the same addictions come free. Watch the same young families walk in goodness and grace and freedom. Why? Because when we give out of our necessities, he will continue to take you places and show you that he is faithful once again. But you got to go back. You got to go back. In Exodus chapter 6, verse 12, it says, But Lord, Moses objected, my own people won't listen to me anymore. How can I expect Pharaoh to listen? I'm such a clumsy speaker. He keeps going back to that, doesn't he? How many times does God continue to tell you what to do and you just keep going back to the things that you're not good enough at? The way that you're not good enough, you're not spiritual enough, you're not sound enough, you don't feel like you have enough revelation in your life, you don't feel like you have enough knowledge in your life. How many times do you make an excuse? Well, I'm too old, I'm too big, I'm too small, I'm not mentally ready for this. It says, but the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them the orders for the Israelites and for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron to lead the people of Israel out of Egypt. Moses saying, God, you don't understand. He's saying, lead them out of Egypt. I'm not changing what I've called you to do. I'm asking you to do this. It felt like it was all falling apart, but it wasn't. Moses went back to stating his inadequacy, back to Mount Sinai where he said it was all lost, but Moses made excuses about his ability, but they were all about God. You know what's interesting about this message to me? If anybody had a reason to complain, I'm going to state this a little bit more on our New Year's message. Our New Year's Day service here, our New Year's Eve service on 31st is online only. We're actually going to gather all online the week after Christmas. We're looking forward to that particular Sunday, so we won't be meeting any of our locations physically. We'll all be online. But I'm kind of tagging for that message a little bit. But I want you to hear what I'm saying in this. Because I'll say it again there, but Moses had more reason than anybody to be upset about his life. Think about Aaron. Moses and Aaron was the brother who got to be at home with his parents and got to experience what it was like as a Hebrew. Moses got taken from his family. He got put into this palace and he got taught all the ways of the Egyptians. He didn't have the Hebrew lifestyle. He missed out on his entire childhood because he had to grow up as an Egyptian. All the similarities with the Hebrews and all the things. I don't know about you, but I think Moses might have been a little frustrated about that. Maybe he was a little bit irritated. Are you kidding me? My mom and dad, I missed out on all that. And I'm in this palace with people I don't even know that don't have my same bloodline because they felt sorry for this little Hebrew kid. Yeah, God, you're great. You're a miracle. I'm pretty sure Moses might have the same thought like you and me of why am I even here? I'd rather not even be here. I'm a misfit. I'm out of place. I'd rather not even be here. And we start blaming our past and we start blaming all the hurts in our life on the way I was brought up or my parents or the way that I wasn't adequate or the way that I fell into sin, but that sin fell into me. And we start getting angry at all of the things in our life. But Moses had as much reason as anybody to be frustrated about his life because he wasn't able to grow up with his grandma and his grandpa and his mom and dad on a consistency like his brother and his sister were. Why me, God? Why do I got to stay in the palace? And why do I got to be the one that everybody looks at? Why do I got to be the one to have to kill an Egyptian and then I got to run? And I'm on the run. Now I'm 40 years removed. I'm 80 years old coming back. Moses went back at 80 years old to Egypt. Are you kidding me? And I think that for me, I don't know that I would have had what Moses had. I think I might have been too bitter at that bush to say, God, I'm 80 years old, bro. You took my childhood from me. I defended my people, and then they were hunting me like a fugitive, and you caught me out here 40 years, and now you're going to tell me you have a calling on my life? Why didn't you tell me this when I was 5? Why you wait until I'm 80? I would think Moses had as much reason as anybody to be a little frustrated with God, telling him what to do, and then keep sending him back to those places. And I wonder how much of that regret and that tension gets us. How much of those things in our life that we blame, if we would just pause, I think in just about every situation of our life that angers us, we could find a tiny bit of fault. Not a lot. For some of you, you're saying, well, how can I be at fault? I was 4. I'm not saying every situation, but I'm saying most situations, I think we can have some type of perspective where we could see we were maybe a contributor at some point to the problems. And God is saying, Moses, I need you to go back. Moses is saying, my whole life has been going back. Are you kidding me? Circumstances in your life are going to change. But God, he won't. I love what it says in John chapter 14. It says, he is the Holy Spirit who leads us into all truth. The world cannot receive him because it isn't looking for him and it doesn't recognize him, but you know him because he lives with you now and later will be in you. You'll know him because he's in you. The Holy Spirit's in you. It's really the whole story of Christmas. It's funny when you think about Mary. We have a song, Mary, did you know? Yes, she did know. She was fully aware. Mary, did you know your baby boy she knew. Why? She was the one that was telling everybody, this is the child of God. She knew. Yes, she did. Why? Because the Holy Spirit was in her and he spoke to her. Maybe the tough time you're going through right now isn't because you're an awful human, but because God opened up that infection and let it fester to the point where it was exposed so that now it can heal. Maybe there was something so deep in you that you suppressed and you never got freedom in it. And it's now at the point where public knowledge and you're frustrated and overwhelmed. But maybe you're not as sick as you thought you were. Maybe this was a sickness that was always buried, but now it's just exposed. And now the healing can actually start. All God's saying to you is, hey, go back. Let's go back and get some stuff figured out here. Let's get this done. This fall when we were selling our house, we had offer after offer that would fall through. And I remember with every one, the tension of losing the new house was getting closer. And the tension of our house was getting closer. And I remember for 3.5 months, the sheer level of, I would say, spiritual stress was so overwhelming. I told my wife, I have been stressed physically, but I've never felt so much spiritual tension in me as I had in those 3 months. And you know what it was? It had nothing to do with the situation. It had everything to do with my faith. Because what God told me is, Brandon, once I move you to this new house, you're going to need me every day for the rest of your life to have faith. And I wonder how many of us, and I would love to tell you it's comfortable, but it's not. Because I'd love to tell you, I would love to ask you this. How many of us are in a position where you would say, I live every day in a place where if God doesn't do something, if I don't know that God is present, I don't know that I can make it. And I was telling our trustees this morning before we prayed, that I told them, I said, you know, I just have lately in the last 2 weeks, I have had such a stirring in me that's a hunger for God that I've never had. I've always loved God. I've always yearned for him. But in the last couple of weeks, I have felt God just drawing me close to him in such a fast way and wanting to hold and wanting to speak, because I know he wants to do something special in the lives of you, of the people that we're leading. I know he wants to do something special here. I know he's doing it. I know that what you did to give to the church in Oakland, Maryland was showing God we're willing to go back. We're willing to give out of our necessities. We've got story after story coming in of people. And let me tell you this story. There are people in Oakland, Maryland who gave to our one day. Sacrificially. For a church that we're bringing to them. I've got other cities in Maryland people have already started talking to that God gave me vision for years ago, and already been told, we will buy you a building. I have been told by an organization, we will purchase you a building in this city when you're ready for it. God is saying, will you go back? Will you go back? I don't care if you pull up our website and we have more locations than Starbucks. That's not why we do it. You know why we do it? Because for 9 years, we have been faithful to being whatever God's asked us to be. And you as his people have said, we will give out of our necessity and we will be faithful to the call of God in our lives. And a church can't be like this collectively unless there are a lot of people like this individually. And so I want to encourage you today, the darkness you're sitting in, the struggle you're in, the frustration you're in, the overwhelm you're in, the angst you're in, it's not because you're a bad human. It's because God is saying, will you go back? Because I love you. And I see it. Because he's going to take you to a place where your faith is going to be tested. And he's going to say, will you go back? And if it's not right, you'll say no. And the Hebrews will still be left in Egypt, discouraged, when he asked you to be his hands and feet to get him out. Go back. Will you stand with me this morning? I'm going to ask our prayer team to go ahead and come to the front as well. I want to take a moment because I want to pray. I want to pray for courage today. Honestly, whenever I was writing this message, I wasn't sure how God wanted to end it. But I really sense even now as I'm talking to you that we just need to ask God for some courage, because I think a lot of you want prayer. You want God to take you back. You want him to do something supernatural in your life. You want him to stir something. You want him to have this opportunity to do the supernatural. But he's saying, hey, let one of the elders of the church, let one of the leaders here pray over your life and believe with you for the supernatural things. Let somebody pray with you today to start a process, to get that engine started. Because he's proud of you. It doesn't matter what sin you've committed, what failures you've had. God is so proud to have you as his kid. He doesn't care what addictions you're in. He doesn't care what sexual addictions you're in. He doesn't care what emotional addictions you're in. He cares, but it doesn't keep you from him. He wants to take you to a place that only he can. He wants to take you back. This isn't a message for the 40 and unders today. I've heard it said before when people have addictions, that whatever age they start having that addiction in, they stay at that age of maturity until they're free from that addiction. So if you've known people that have been addicted, you're saying, man, they act really childish, but they're 40. Well, it's because they might have started that addiction when they were in 7th or 8th grade or 9th or 10th grade, and emotionally, mentally, you stop maturing at the place of your addiction. I've actually seen that same thing with sin. When I see people that have started something and they can't get out of it, I've seen that progression systematically and really close. And in fact, I've seen the same thing with people that I know that are older, that they have these things from their childhood, these things from their past that they have never gotten healed, and they stay as that 5th grade kid that was never healed. They stay as that kid who never had validation from their parent. They stay at that place where they never had healing from sexual things with them and their spouse, whatever it may be. And God wants to take you back to heal it as far back as he's willing to go. So this is what I ask you to do today. 1, be willing to go as far back as you need to. That's the first thing I ask. And 2, be willing to admit that you were not just a victim. Do I think I was a part of the problem when I went through sexual abuse? No, I don't. But when I look at myself as a victim, I look at myself who had no control. But when I look at what God, because when I went through all my healing, God said, Brandon, I said, God, how could you? How dare you? Who do you think you are? And God said, you have no idea what I saved you from. We only know the story that we live, not the one that God actually did. And so what I would say to you today is go back to that place, have the courage, but then have the courage to look through your eyes and say, what have I allowed to creep into my life? Or was I a part of this problem? And what have I allowed to hold me? Because they say not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and expecting them to die. Go back. Have the courage. And let's look in the mirror when we get there. Not saying we're at fault, but let's ask for God's perspective. Because when he puts you where he wants you in front of the Pharaoh and leading the people out of Egypt that are discouraged, you're going to have the DNA to say, I'm here. I'm going back because God did it in me, and I know he can do it in them. Let's pray. Lord, I just pray right now in Jesus' name. God, I pray for each and every person. I pray that they would see right now that your hand is on them, that God, you understand them, and that God, you're going to take them back. That God, you're going to do the supernatural in their life, and that Father, you're going to do the things in their life that doesn't make sense, the things that people are trying to make sense of. But God, I pray they'd have the courage today. Take them back. God, take them back to the places of pain. Take them back to the places of confusion. Take them back to the places of instability. Take them back to the places where it seems like the world is falling apart, where they didn't have control. Take them back so they can find that place. So when you call them in front of Pharaoh, they know they have the passion. They can read the room. God, take us back today. Father, I pray over each and every life and each and every person that they would see that your hand is on them, that you love them, that they are a child of the Most High. You didn't make a mistake when you created them and crafted them. But God, you're going to do the supernatural in them and through them. And we thank you right now in Jesus' name. Father, we submit this moment to you. God, as a church, we just submit to you and we thank you that you have gone before us, that Father, you are perfect in every way. We thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your faithfulness. We thank you that you love us. We thank you that your hand is on us. I just pray for courage right now for that person who feels unforgivable. I pray, Holy Spirit, that they would feel a stir in their spirit knowing that God, you see them, that Father, they are not unforgivable. They are a child that was intricately and delicately made with vision and calling and a passion, and they were not a mistake. They were planted, and God, you are going to bring them back to a place of health. You are revealing things right now so that they can approach infection. I pray they would know that it's time to go back, and you are waiting. Father, you have already been there. I pray today for that marriage that seems to just be doing okay, but there's a lack of trust. I pray today that the couple would go back to those conversations that they don't want to have. They would go back to the place of unforgiveness with the wife not forgiving a husband, or a husband not being able to forgive the wife. I pray they would go back to the places of the addictions. Those that are walking today, they feel like alcohol controls them, or desires outside of their spouse control them, or desires for any inebriated fact control them. I pray they could go back in this moment and see where that pain started, see where those things are coming from. What are we medicating today that you want to completely take out of our spirit and help us walk? And I ask in Jesus' name for courage across this room and all over the internet for people to go back and allow you to take out the gangrene so that they can walk in victory, they can walk in freedom. Father, help us to walk in a way that we know you are a king, you are a great king, you are El Shaddai, you are the Almighty, you are Yahweh. We want to go back today, God. We want to walk with authority. We know that no weapon formed against us will prosper, and we stand here today and declare victory in the name of Jesus. We want to go back, and we ask that you would help begin to transform, begin to stir in a way that only you can. Oh God, we love you, and we thank you, and we submit. Would you just lift your hands all across this room? Would you just go back right now? Come on, let him do it in you. Let him do it in you. Find somebody to pray with today. If you're saying, I want the elders of the church to pray over me, to believe. Come on. Lord, we need you. We're going back right now. Let's sing this together and let's celebrate all that God is doing today. We surrender to you in Jesus' name. Yeah. Come on, tell him. Yeah. Come on, tell him. Tell him. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else. Come on, tell him. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Come on, there's nothing else. You're the only reason. And nothing else. Come on, I just want you. Oh, 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 I just, yeah. I just want you. I just want you. I just want you. Oh, you're my heart's desire. Yeah. Oh, you're my heart's desire, Jesus. Whoa. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want. Can we sing that, church? Sing nothing, nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, nothing else, nothing else, nothing else will do. I just want you. Oh, we just want you. We just want you. We just want you. So God, we are here right now in this moment.
you're calling us to go back, to finish the process, to do the work. God, there's nothing we desire more but than to please you, to honor you with our lives, to give you glory through every part of us, Jesus. Nothing else matters, God, but giving you the glory that you deserve. So God, we receive this word today. We say yes to your will, yes to your way. We say yes to surrender. Because God, if you could use anything, Lord, the fact that you would use somebody like me, it's a privilege to go through this process, Father. The fact that I'm not disqualified from being used, God, makes the process worth it. So church, one last time, could we just sing this chorus? Just to say that, God, there is nothing else that matters but you. Yeah. Can we sing nothing else? Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Nothing else. Nothing else. Nothing else will do. I just want you. Can we give God some praise? If he's all you want, can we give him the glory and honor in this moment? Palms family, we love you. Have an amazing rest of your week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any new content or videos. We're here live every week. We'll see you soon.